everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. Today we're going to talk about how you can take pretty much any jazz standard and with 3 simple elements, turn it into a solo jazz piano piece. There will be 2 levels, one easier level that I'll talk about first and one more advanced level that I'll talk about second. There's a worksheet for this video, and if you click the card above my head, you can be taken to my website where you can get it. The song that I'm going to use today is Bluesette by Toots Thielemans. I love this song, and I learned it when I was really small. Some people play it wrong. Well, the way that most people play it, like at jam sessions, is that they take the first 24 bars and they just play them over and over again, which is okay because the chord changes in Bluesette do repeat after 24 bars, but the second half of the song actually has its own melody that rarely gets done. I'd kind of like to just play and sing the whole thing for you real quick, just so you can hear how the song goes. Poor little sad little Bluesette, don't you cry, don't you fret. You can bet one lucky day you'll waken and your blues will be forsaken. One lucky day, lovely love will come your way. Long as there's love in your heart to share, dear Bluesette, don't despair. Some blue boy is longing just like you do. Find us someone to be true to loving arms he can nestle in and stay. Pretty little Bluesette, mustn't be a mourner. Have you heard the news yet? Love is round the corner. Love wrapped in rainbows and tied with big ribbon to make your next springtime your gold wedding ring time so dry your eyes. Don't you pout, don't you fret, goody good times are coming, Bluesette. Poor little sad little Bluesette, don't you cry, don't you fret. You can bet one lucky day you'll waken and your blues will be forsaken. One lucky day, lovely love will come your way. That magic day may just be today. So that's how it goes. It's kind of a long form. We'll get through it and it won't take us too long, I promise. The basic thing you need to be able to do before you can do these 3 elements I'm talking about is play a bass line and play the melody. All you have to do to play a bass line the simple way is just to play dotted half notes with the root note. So that's it. You can see on the chart that every single chord in this song, except for at the coda, takes up a bar. So all you have to do is just play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. There's a couple of places where one chord will take up 2 bars. In those instances, I like to recommend that you play the low one first and then the high one. So instead of playing B flat twice, you'll play a low one and then a high one, just for variety. So if you can do that and play the melody that's written on the worksheet at the same time, I think you're gonna be able to do this. This is the basic thing. The 3 elements I'm talking about that you're going to add to this song are gonna make it sound like it did when I played at the very beginning of this video. So the first element is being able to play that bass line. You already got one of them, basically. Again, stick around to the second half because the way to play it more advanced is going to be with a walking bass line, and I'll talk about how to do that toward the end of the video. In fact, look in the description and I'll give you a timestamp for that. The second element is to be able to find places in the melody where there are held notes or holes, I like to call them, either held notes or rests, spaces where you can put in a little bit of rhythm and a little bit of comping, some chords. So And when we do those comping rhythms, we're going to use thirds and sevens. And there are only a few places where we're going to do them. So when I say the third and seven, that means to find the third of any chord, any given chord that we're on, and the seven. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is to play the melody and the bass line together. And we're going to start down low, I said, right? Now, this is the first time where the melody is a dotted half note, so there's room for us to play some rhythm. What I recommend that you do is that you're going to play this. I recommend that you play this with your pinky, because we can play the third and seven of D7, and we're going to add our left hand, and we're just going to do this little rhythm. You can see it very slowly. These two we're going to hit at the same time, both pinkies. And I'm going to call these two fingers that we're going to play the thirds and sevens with, I'm going to call them your pistol fingers. I think you can see why. All right, so it's pinkies, pistol, left thumb, pistol. That's our rhythm. And every time we add rhythm, it's going to be that rhythm, because that rhythm, it's a really common rhythm for a jazz waltz. So far we have. You hear my wrist pop? That was amazing. Okay, next part. Again, pinky right here, and we'll reach down and do the same thing. And then here. And then we'll put a pinky here on this D, and we'll do the same thing. That's another option, is you can reach down here and do it. Either way is okay. Now this is the place where we're going to employ our second device, which is called sixths or thirds. It's a nice idea to try to find in a melody a place that can be harmonized into thirds. Thirds and sixths are the same thing. Like, take for instance this next chord that's coming up, which is E flat minor 7. Right? The melody notes in this chord are B flat and G flat. The way to harmonize something is to either take a third above or below the note, make sure it's a chord tone, and try it out and see how it sounds. So for this first G flat up here, we can either harmonize it a third below or a third above, or a sixth below or a sixth above. Either way works. But you just kind of have to use your ears and decide which one you want to do. I chose to do sixths for this. If we were going to do thirds, it would sound like. So I chose to go below the melody note. I'm doing an E flat, and then a D flat, and then a C. The reason I chose those notes are because they're in the key. The key that we're in right now is actually D flat, because if you look at the chords, E flat minor 7, root position, E flat minor 7, A flat 7, and D flat major 7 that's coming up, that's the whole 2-5-1 is in the key of D flat. So we can think in the key of D flat for this entire 2-5-1, all right? So all of the notes that we choose to harmonize these melody notes will be in the key of D flat major. That's an option. That's the option that I chose to do this. And I kind of like this one. It's easy to teach because your thumb is going to hit 3 black notes in a row. And then we're going to go melody note. And then we're going to go melody note and harmonize, harmonize. And every time we do that, what we need to look at is the new key center. We're going to have 3 different tonal centers. The first one is going to be D flat, like I said. Right, there's our D flat. The second one is going to be C flat. And the third one is going to be B flat. Even though it technically, the 2-5 of C minor to F7 never goes to B flat, it's a deceptive cadence. It goes to D minor, but But we can recognize that the C minor to F7 is actually a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat. So those are the notes we use to harmonize the melody. All right. And then we play bass note melody. And here we're going to harmonize these ones. So we're going to pick sixths in the keys of C flat, or you can think of it as B if you'd like to. It is kind of easy to remember like where your thumb goes somehow when you play these sixths. So the first time it was the 3 black notes. Now it's the 2 black notes plus an E. And then we're in the key of C flat for a second. We play the melody note. We should start low because there's 2 bars of C flat. Let's harmonize those as well. I like how that sounds. But when we get to here, we've got a held note that lasts for a really long time. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that the same thing where we use our pistol fingers and we use our octave here, and we're going to go like that. So we've got the F down. We're going to hold the F if you can. Ooh, it's kind of hard. Low, then high, right? So that's a cool chord. This B7 is a tritone substitution for F7. If you'd like to know more about tritone substitutions, you can watch my video about tritone substitutions so you can understand that. But it sounds really nice. So we have... you see, right there, I didn't follow my rule exactly. I think I went... which is fine. You can do them all like I said. You could even do this if you wanted to. So that you alternate. You know, my rules aren't set in stone. They're just good rules for beginning. And then it repeats when we do it again. Pinky, pistols. Pinky, pistols. Pinky, pistol, pistols. Here comes our sixths. Comes our next part. So our 3 elements, again, to reiterate, are simple bass line, added thirds and sevenths where there are holes or spaces. Sometimes it's a held note in the melody, sometimes it's a rest. That's how you know where there's room to put your rhythm. Now what if we're dealing with a song that is in 4/4? You're going to have a different rhythm to do, but you're going to still have thirds and sevenths. Let's look at Autumn Leaves starting on C minor. There's some held notes right off the bat, aren't there? See how you can take the thirds and sevenths and just make a nice rhythm. It might be hard for you to think of what rhythm to do. I guess I'm not really covering that in this video, so I'm sorry about that. But hopefully you can use your ears and also watch my videos about comping and come up with some nice rhythms to play in 4/4. But in 3/4, like I said, that's a pretty standard jazz waltz rhythm, and we're just going to do that. So let's move on to the next part of the song. In the next part of the song, I'd like to add a walking bass line. So this is the part where we get a little advanced, and you don't have to do this. If you'd like to, you can keep the bass line the same. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But if you'd like to play a walking bass line and you know how already, you can ignore these rules I'm going to give you right now. My very simple rule in 3/4 is that you just play 1, 2, 3. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and then you can do it again. 1, 2, 3. And then for the A half diminished chord, you do 1, 2, 3. For the D7 chord, 1, 2, 3. You just play scale tones. And when it is half diminished, we do borrow from the Locrian mode. That means we start with a minor second. They fit really nicely together. That's a 2-5-1 in the key of G minor, isn't it? sometimes you run out of room. Like, we shouldn't really play much higher than this when we play a bass line. So the cool thing that you can do is when you get to the G minor chord, instead of going 1, 2, 3 and going really high, you can drop for that second note. You play from your D7 chord, 1, 1, 2, 3. Now here's your G. This is your 1. Now you need a 2, 3, so you can drop 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And even here, it's a nice place to drop 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. The thing you don't want to do is drop before you get to your 1. You like to have the line finished. So let's back up to the A half diminished chord. To do that, it's just a little bit disjointed. I think it's nice to finish the line. They go really nicely into each other like that. And even though it's a very simple rule, I still think it sounds pretty hip. So as soon as we add this walking bass line, it's going to make our song sound a little more complicated. And it'll be more complicated to play to add this melody. Already, right? That's a little hard to do. You have to slow it way down and practice that and get your fingerings down. And if you wonder which fingerings to use, you can put these YouTube videos at halftime. Then I sound drunk, but you can still do it, and it'll slow down the piano so that you can see what's going on more clearly. We get to the E flat, and I think this might be a nice time. It'll be a tricky time, but it might be a nice time to add sixths again if you want to. You don't have to. Okay, so the next part goes like this. The melody's very tricky. It's a very tricky melody. Try singing it. Not easy. You should try singing it. If we were to make sixths out of these, you always do want to put the melody on the top. That's how you determine if you're doing, that's an easy way to know how to harmonize. You can put thirds on the bottom and see how it sounds, and it might be okay. Let's see. Now here I have a major third. Here I have a minor third. When you're doing these, you kind of need to realize the key you're in. So I didn't choose to stay with a major third the whole way. That probably wouldn't be a good idea. You'd get a pretty cool sound doing that, but it's not technically correct. So we want to stay in the key, and we realize that in the key of E flat, these are the notes. So those are the notes we harmonize on. And this is chromatic, so we'll just pass because this one was in between these two scale tones. We'll just use this one, which is in between these two scale tones. Troubling when you're dealing with thirds like this. So I tend to think sixths are easier to finger because you can just do it with your hang loose fingers. And as you can see, to make it sound a little smoother, sometimes I do little switches between my pinky and my ring finger. See that? How I start and then I change so that I can hold on to it. We should do a G natural there on the D flat minor 7 chord because again E, because I think it'll sound really hip. Woo! Usually you can kind of take a cue, and when your melody goes up a whole step, your sixths will also go up a whole step or go down a whole step. This might be the point where I let it go. But you could keep it going if you want. again, I'm just using chord tones in the key of B flat because we're in the key of B flat for a second for this 2-5-1 that says C minor 7 and F7. Whoa. Yeah, right there on the C minor 7 chord, I think you probably have to go to the chord so that your audience gets a sense of where you're at. And there's your B7 flat 5 chord. So all of that was kind of tricky. One thing is, if all of that seemed like way too tricky for you, you don't have to do this part of the song. You can have so much fun just with the first part of the song. You can just, play it over and over again like everybody does at the jam session I was talking about. And also during that last 2-5-1 that we just played, where I showed you the B7 flat 5 chord, where we just play the third and the 7, and the melody note is the flat 5. We could add some rhythm there. We could play the 3rd and 7 of C minor with the 7 on the bottom because it's nice and close to this F note, the melody note. And then, nice thing about 3rds and 7s, and this is why I teach 3rds and 7s all the time religiously, is because they always give way to each other in chords. See the next one of them almost always stays where it's at, and only one has to move, and then the next one moves, and then it stays, and then this one moves, and this, it's like a spider, itsy bitsy friggin' spider effect of the 3rds and 7s. That's why I love it. It's because of the voice leading. It's beautiful. And there isn't that much room in a song like this to add more notes to your chord. You totally can. Instead of going, or with the bass line, it's. But if you wanted, you could add more notes, of course. But I can't really, because I've got to hold down this melody note. So I can't. I guess I could reach all the way to here and play that kind of a voicing, and then that kind of a voicing for the B7 chord. I just don't think you need to. I think it sounds really nice and light, especially to the level I'm teaching to today, which is kind of, I don't know, advanced beginner. Then we're back to the beginning. And if you'd like, you can bring it right back to that nice one feel with the simple bass line. And then you can do just like we did at the beginning. If you'd like a little variety, of course you could add sixths to this part. Sixths almost always work. So you just need to find, you need to kind of try it out. Try out the different parts where you can harmonize the melody, just really simply. We could do thirds for this part. Why not? Let's try that. They sound fine, don't they? Yeah, they sound fine. It just depends on what your ear likes better. So here we have a D with our F, and here we had an A. What are those two notes? Oh my gosh, they're the 3rd and the 7. I always like sixths better. I rarely do thirds. I think it's a good idea to learn to play in sixths. All right, so there you have it. Let's do the coda. I didn't do the coda, did I? Let's pretend we're coming around the A for the last time on the DS. Here it is. This is a nice place this is a place that gets held a really long time. So one thing you could do is use your pedal to make sure that G gets held onto, and then bring your left hand down and play those 3rds and 7s down here. That's probably the best thing to do, because if you try to play 3rds and 7s up here, it sounds a little bright, and I typically don't like to do that. You could do this one. That's where the pedal is really your friend. F sus is the chord here. There are ways to voice an F sus chord. I like to think of a sus chord as whatever the chord is, but you drop everything a whole step. So if you're thinking, if the chord's an F sus, you think of an E flat major triad, and you just play it like that. You can do it in any inversion. I also have chords in parentheses in case you'd like to go back and do the beginning of the song again. So like that. That's how I have it. All right, I think that does it. 3 simple elements you can use to turn your jazz standard into a simple solo piano piece. Simple walking bass line, advanced walking bass line, finding space to put your thirds and sevenths in a nice comping rhythm, and finding nice places in the melody that lend themselves to being harmonized with thirds or sixths. Another thing that you can do is to take your chart and to just write yourself little notes about where you're going to do it. The places where there's a long note held, you can just maybe write a little star with your pencil or draw a little circle there so that you remember that you're going to play some comping notes there. You can also write in the sixths. So, just pencil them in underneath the ink and make sure that you know those notes. You can also write in the fingerings. It's kind of a lot to think about. I hope it wasn't too much, but I had a good time trying to show you how to do this. I hope it goes well for you. Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.